The meeting of the zoning board of adjustment of the city of Elizabeth, and I call to order. This meeting of the zoning board of adjustment of the city of Elizabeth, convened this Thursday, the 10th day of May, 2012, as the duly advertised according to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. A regular meeting, notice of said meeting was published in the Star Ledger on January 27th, 2012, and notices of the cases to be heard were also published in the Star Ledger. At least 10 days before this day. Madam Secretary, roll call.
Commissioner Hernandez. Commissioner Castro.
Here.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Silva. Here. Commissioner Deeds. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Here.
Reverend Dixon. Commissioner Connell. Commissioner Galvez.
Here.
Vice Chairman Papa.
Here.
Chairman Lynn.
You'll all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we start the meeting, I want the attorneys to be aware that at present we have 6 commissioners. Are the attorneys present in the chamber?
Gary Hall representing the Hayward.
Would someone please get Mr. Sanchez to come into the chamber? Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. At present we have 6 commissioners.
Let me double check with my client, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, just so you're aware.
Am I correct, we can proceed and...
Well, it's your call. If you want to receive the 6 commissioners, it's your option to do so, yeah.
But I mean, I would have a option to, and after you present, request an adjournment. Now we're going to vote on the city.
You don't want to do the whole thing. So you'd rather reschedule your case?
No, I'd like to present, and if I hear any feedback, I'll apparently come back. I mean, that's just normal practice.
Well, what I can say is you could adjourn, but there's no guarantee that you're going to have a seventh vote unless somebody else is going to read the transcript, and there's no guarantee of that. So your choice, but it's not. There's no guarantees of a seventh vote.
We will proceed.
So we'll proceed on. You have the first case up, Mr. Sanchez. The first case we're going to hear this evening is Z0712 224 234 Elizabeth Avenue, Hub Realty. Okay, it's my understanding we have Councilman Rova in the like to speak about this application. We're going to let you speak first, Council, because we know you're busy. So if you would come up and
Manny Grove, 104 Clark Place, Elizabeth, New Jersey. I just wanted to, first of all, good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, Rep. Dixon, members of the zoning board. I just came up today for a very simple reason. I know that there's a project going to be presented before you tonight for a laundromat on Elizabeth Avenue and Florida Street. That property has been abandoned for a long time. There used to be the Greystone Church that got destroyed with fire probably about 16, 17 years ago. No longer, maybe about 19, 20 years ago. And since then, the Presbytery has tried to gather up their troops, funding to possibly rebuild the church, and they were not successful. And I think the developer has come on board and entered into an agreement to purchase the property in order to put in a laundromat. I know it's a commercial use and it is a residential area, but Elizabeth Avenue has become more of a commercial corridor over the last several years. We have 7-Eleven built there. We've got a couple of other businesses. We have a funeral home, and so I think it's not too far of a deviation from the current area. So I came to support the project. I know that the developer has met the neighbors back in December, and I don't think there's any objection from any of the neighbors as to the project. And I'm hoping that that you'll consider the project in a favorable light, and that's the reason why I came. Thank you very much.
thank you, Councilman Grover.
If I may, Commissioners, for the record, I want this answer on behalf of the applicant. As Mr. Grove stated, we're here before you for a use variance to present to you a development for commercial laundry on a residential area. In addition to the laundry, there'd be one smaller area for another type of commercial use. The interesting thing about this application is that we are providing more than the required parking, just in anticipation of being able to meet all of the parking requirements, even hopefully in big areas. In addition to that, as my girl was stating before, if you are familiar, and I'm sure you are with Elizabeth Avenue, not only is this property one block from a commercial zone, and that's 1.5 from another, also in a commercial zone, but right there is a funeral home, I believe it's a firehouse, there's a nightclub, there's a repair shop, a senior citizen is right next to it. So, in my opinion, it is a good transitional use, but I let our experts testify to that. And then please, Mark Rosebetter, if you can be sworn in.
Just on this way, the testimony you're giving.
Anthony Allen, 320 North Avenue East, Concord, New Jersey.
State your name, sir.
Mark Lusbader, Lusbader, from Realty at 447 Northfield Avenue in West Orange.
Ms. Rosebetter, you heard my initial brief comments as well as perhaps Councilman Grover's comments. You are the principal or person in charge of this project, is that correct?
That's correct.
And please tell the board basically how you envision this project to occur. What is your specific plans for that area? A brief overview of what you're looking for, what you're trying to do.
Good evening. First, a little bit of background. Okay, that's fine. Maybe better. Everyone hear me? Again, my name is Mark Lester. Good evening. I'm a Hub Realty. We are a real estate development, management, construction, concern West Oregon. Yes.
Put the mic closer. No, hold it. But I'm having trouble hearing you. I'm only 3 feet away. They're going to be yelling.
Like this, okay. We have been developing our family-run development business, developing properties in the urban areas of New Jersey for the last 50 years, specifically here in Elizabeth for the last 25. That experience includes different types of residential and commercial properties. Most recently, in July of 2010, we completed a similar project like the one proposed before you this evening on Bayway Circle here in Elizabeth. That project consisted of a 2-building site, one building being a Capital One bank, and the second being a laundry warehouse, laundry store. I mention that because that, for those of you familiar with that site, represents both the quality and the nature of the project that we're proposing this evening. What we propose on Elizabeth Avenue is a 6,700 square foot single building that will be principally occupied by the laundry warehouse. 5,200 square feet of the building will be the laundry warehouse store. That will actually be our third location here in the city of Elizabeth. We have an additional location in addition to the Bayway location I just spoke of on Elmore and Grand. It's located with the Pathmark Shopping Center on that corner. We put that store in about the 2000 time frame, and since then have performed what we believe is a valuable community service for the city of Elizabeth. The laundry warehouse is a full-service neighborhood laundry store. We provide a state-of-the-art equipment for 2 basic functions. Either someone comes in and does the laundry using our equipment, or you can drop your laundry off and have it washed, dried, and folded by our employees. Our goal with all our stores, and this is again our store in Elizabeth, and 9th store in total, is to provide a clean and comfortable and safe environment for the local neighbors to have the best laundry experience possible.
Solicitor, just to stop you for interrupt you for a little bit. Your plan for this specific store, all the size, you describe the size, the plan speaks for itself. The plans for this store, the plans describe the site and everything else. However, you have the area is a residential zone. Is that correct?
Yes.
And in your planning, your this development, include some kind of study regarding the particular use of a laundry facility with the type of neighborhood and the type of people that may be able to benefit from this use.
Yes, we do.
And what does planning show you?
Well, typically our analysis as to a potential location includes looking at the census data and the demographics in the area. And that data shows us how many residents are in the immediate vicinity of a location. And then of those residents in those households, you know, how many are renters and may not have access to their own laundry facilities, or the ones they have are not either functional or well kept, or they feel comfortable doing them in a safe environment. So one point of the analysis is to look at the demographics of the area. The second part of the analysis is to look at the market and how the area is currently being served by the existing laundromats that are in the area. And based on that analysis for the site on Elizabeth Avenue, we concluded what we offer with our laundry warehouse operation is not being provided in this area, and we think that the community would be well served by having our store in this neighborhood and in this particular location.
And that being said, what are the hours of operation that you expect your plan for the hours of operation, sir?
The hours of operation we propose for this location are the same as the other two stores we have currently in operation in Elizabeth, and they are Monday through Friday. We open at 7 a.m. We call it last wash at midnight, and we close the store down at 2 a.m. Our hours on weekends are exactly the same, except that we open 1 hour earlier at 6 a.m. on both Saturday and Sunday.
And the employees that you, based again on the experiences that you have at the Bayway location, how many employees, what kind of staffing do you expect at this location?
We expect to have, at this particular location, 4 to 6 full-time employees and 3 to 5 part-time employees. Plus, we run a crew of mechanics, maintenance, and cleaning people for multi-stores and have multi-store managers. So the actual employment population is bigger than just what resides at that store. And we currently employ 18 people in the City of Elizabeth residents, I should say.
So you expect that the staffing of this store will be primarily comprised of Elizabeth residents?
Yes. In fact, we seek that out. We always choose to hire from the local community. They know the customers. We try, again, we're a neighborhood-based business and want to have neighborhood employees.
The chair wants to recognize Commissioner Eden, and also I was remiss before, there's a gentleman taping this hearing. Will the gentleman please step forward, state your name, and where this viewing can be seen?
My name is Richard Hall, and the video can be seen at youtube.com/Elizabeth Nicole.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Well, I have to show you some pictures. Well, they don't represent the one that we're going to build, you're going to build again. But if I show you this picture, which I would like Mark to see one.
This picture represents the exterior of the laundry warehouse building on Bayway Circle that I referenced earlier.
And the other, show you another picture, which I have Mark to too. What does that represent?
This represents the interior of the Bayway Circle location. Yes.
And then three, again.
That's another perspective of the interior of the Bayway Circle location, which is prototypical design and look and feel that we're proposing for this location.
So rather, basically, the pictures, rather than having an old-fashioned set of washing machines and dryers, this is state-of-the-art.
It is state-of-the-art.
I'd like to introduce the residents. Let's look at it and last around. I won't bring into, you're more or less into look at things that goes through your own extremely critical about it. I have no further questions, so Mr. Lozano, at this time. Any questions, Commissioner? Engineer, architect,
Commissioners, any questions for this witness?
I have some questions, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I'm looking at what I could call a survey of the land where the proposed project is going to be built. And it appears to be symmetrically square, right?
It appears to be a lot that is quite right.
Square. Symmetrically square. It's square, right?
The shape of the property?
Yes, yes.
It's primarily square. There's a piece or a tail of the property that goes behind. It's not the full block. There's a residence next door that shares a block with us, and there's a piece behind that goes on to Geneva Street that kind of sticks out as a flag off the square.
It's almost square. My question is this. Looking at the comments of Mr. Gallerano, in his review letters, he shows concerns regarding the front yard setback to Elizabeth Avenue, the side yard facing Geneva. So my question is this. If the size of the land is almost square, do you contemplate the possibility of repositioning the building instead of facing to Florida Street, changing the building to face Elizabeth Avenue and have the main entrance from Elizabeth Avenue instead of Florida Street?
The main entrance is from Elizabeth Avenue. There's no entrance from Florida Street.
Who's speaking?
Yes, you're
Hold on, are you speaking? Or are you speaking? I couldn't tell because, I'll say it again.
Commissioner, the entrance is from Elizabeth Avenue.
You're right, Mr. Sanchez. I'm asking having the building face Elizabeth Avenue instead of Florida Street.
We did look at various scenarios of the location of the building on the site, and concluded that this was the best we're faced with some topographical concerns, that the elevation of the property is up and down. We felt being able to engineer to the most usable scenario presented this as, and provide visibility to the building from Elizabeth Avenue and the parking flow, all of those things just did turn out to be the best alternative.
Because Because I have to say this, I'm looking at this architectural drawing, and I would like to direct you to page 8200. If you look at the east elevation, which faces Geneva Street, I don't see how this building would look nice with the back of the building is facing Geneva Street. I think that, if I may, I think that if you reposition the building and address the issue of the elevation, and I know exactly what you're talking about because I have traveled Elizabeth Avenue many times, the building will look aesthetically better if it is repositioned facing Elizabeth Avenue instead of Florida Street and the back of the building facing Geneva Street. I don't see how it could look good.
Mr. Question. The Geneva Street elevation seems not reflect the fact that there was a residence next door. And so the majority of what you see here as the Geneva Street elevation is actually protected by a privacy fence separating the neighboring house from the building. And therefore the view from Geneva Street at where the building sits is of the side of the neighboring house and not of our building. We felt, and in fact, this is something that I discussed very specifically with the neighbor who owns that house, and we went through this, and they were comfortable that this was okay as long as we put the privacy fence between both the building and the house. And so I agree with you that having the back of the building face the main street would not be desirable. I think we mitigated that concern. And because of the particular elevation and layout of the site of the house, really in front of this whole elevation is a long two-family house. That I don't think anyone on Geneva is really going to see this elevation.
On the size of the two-family house, and now I understand, and I agree. I don't have a problem with that. The size of the two-family house, that is next to the size of the two-family house that shields the back of the building is almost the same size of the proposed laundromat.
If I may, Mark, for an area shot of the site. So rather than large shot,
Okay. This one.
this is the one that take it down.
Gentlemen, can't have a private conversation, it's on the record.
This is the picture shows two structures facing Elizabeth Avenue. And from Elizabeth Avenue, the one on the right is the one that's going to be removed. The one on the left, the found on stage, has met with the orders and they have no objections to the application.
Is there any portion of the proposed building sticking out?
Sticking out?
Yes, I mean, is the house that is remaining, the neighbor's house, smaller in size than the building that we're proposing here?
Not sure I could represent to you definitively that the entirety of the back elevation is shielded by the house. I'm comfortable saying that the majority of it is, and I believe the fence does run the full length of the side. So the fence does, it is a privacy screening fence as was requested by the city. And I believe that will, in fact, combine with the house, really, by very limited any view to this back elevation.
Look, I like this application, don't get me wrong. I just don't want to vote to approve a building where a portion of the building is going to look like an agri warehouse on one side when it could be repositioned to make the neighborhood look better. I've seen many buildings with many boards, not the one here in Elizabeth, have approved. And when I look at those buildings, I wonder, how could that odd building be approved? I like this application. I'm in favor of it. But there are issues that I would like to address and that are persuasive enough to me.
No, I appreciate it.
Sorry.
Thoughts about the application, and I do believe.
I did not hear you, sir.
I do believe that you're raising a viable concern. I don't want you to hear me saying I'm being dismissive of it. But I did, again, make every effort to look at every possible layout of this building on the site. Smaller buildings, larger buildings. And we felt, based on all the considerations, including the most aesthetically pleasing, that this was the best location. And especially given the fact that we did, engage the community, speak directly to the neighbor about this issue, and they seem to be okay with it.
I think that some of your concerns have been well received. Maybe the architect and the engineer can address the reasons for the decision, and perhaps we may be able to make the back of that building more aesthetically pleasing to you as the neighbor. Also, we were talking about the size of the building. If you look at your plans at plan number site plan, whatever third or fourth page is, there is the layout of the existing structure there. We will be presenting amended sheets of the plans to comply with some of Arbor's comments or suggestions, but basically I have, this will be part of the submission by the engineer. We make changes to the plans to comply with all of the conditions of the recommendations of Arbor. But in essence, that black spot is the outline of the house.
I'll wait Mr. Sanchez then for the architect and the engineer. Okay? Thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioners?
Yes, I have a question.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
The Public Realty, is this project subject to approval for a purchase, or you own the property already?
We are the contract purchaser, so subject to approval, we will consummate the closing of the transaction and buy the property.
Okay. Second question I have, could you please emphasize the closing hours that we are establishing?
Yes. 7 days a week. We have last wash, which means no new customers come into the store. And that's at midnight. And then at 2 a.m., the store closes. And that gap between that last wash and the 2 a.m. is to allow people who just happen to come in the door at 11:59 enough time to get their laundry done and for us to complete our cleaning and closing process.
Okay. Big concern. Residential area closing at 12 or 2 o'clock is a concern. I believe you had talks that should be promised to be closing around 9 or 10 o'clock. You had discussions to be closing at 9, 10 o'clock.
Discussions with whom?
Okay, I have a concern because it's a residential area and that you're proposing to close at 12 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Is there any reason why you can close earlier in a residential area?
Bishop, I'd ask you to consider that this is a very similar situation to the site we just completed on Railway Circle. There's a neighborhood right there, and we have neighbors similarly right next to our site. And this was also raised a concern.
Bayway Avenue is a totally different area.
True, but we do have the on Edgar, and behind us, there's a residential avenue that's similarly full of residences. And the balancing act we create is to be able to provide the service to the community within the hours that they requested and be compatible with the neighborhood. So we're not looking to create a nuisance or be open late, but we are looking to stay open for people who work late hours and who choose to come in after work and do their laundry. We found, although there's on peak hours by any sense of imagination, we do get customers, and I feel that is an important part of what we offer to the community. I want to emphasize that last wash process is a very disciplined process in the business, and we do not, and therefore vehicle traffic to the site for our business ceases at midnight. And it's only about those who are still in the store, completing and leaving, and our employees leaving at that point. So, while I think that's a viable concern, and I'm not certainly being dismissive of it, we want to be able to be open to provide the service, for the community, as I said.
Okay, I'll wait. I'll have my comment in here.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, next witness, Mr. Sanchez.
Yes, Paul Gregory, sorry.
Raise your right hand, repeat yourself, and swear any testimony you give tonight will be the truth, all truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes. Would you still be named by your
Sure. This is Gregory Planiak, Oliak, Negley, Negley, Engineering Associates, 34 Park Avenue, Lyndhurst, New Jersey.
Ms. Coleman, please tell the board your credentials, so you may be hopefully qualified as an engineer as well as a
Sure. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey and also a licensed planner in the state of New Jersey. I have a bachelor's of science degree, a master's in science degree from Lehigh University in engineering. I testified over 100 times in front of boards similar to this board. I've been before this board for a couple of years. Some clients that I represent within the area, represent applications, work in this board. I serve as the borough engineer in the borough of Carlstadt, Rockland, Harrington Park, also as the city zoning board planner in the city of Hackensack, and also planner in Rockland, New Jersey. Rockland.
Thank you. So may I please go over the plans, the thoughts that were involved in the setting up the plan, and I believe the plan is going to testify as to architect engineering and then as the planner. I think that it might be better that he testifies, we'll bring the architect to deal with those issues, and then at the end I will bring him back for the specific variances that are needed.
Sure. Previously discussed, the existing site is L-shaped, it's rectangular with a cutout that fronts Geneva Street. The site is down to the north.
Use the microphone closer to your mouth.
The site is bound to the north by Florida Street, to the east by Elizabeth Avenue, and to the south by Geneva The site is approximately 33,750 square feet in size and is located in the R2 residential district. Today, the house and the property contains one residential structure, and the remainder of the site is a demolished church or demolished structure with weeds and lawn growing throughout the property. It is not in good condition as it exists today. As you look at the property as a whole, the topography of the site, the existing topography of the site is basically mountain. Toward the center of the site is the high point of the site, and then it slopes in all different directions to the adjoining properties, toward the west, or to the roadways that surround the property as it exists. The site is located again on Elizabeth Avenue, which is a county roadway, which is a thoroughfare, and it contains a series of uses on that subject roadway, from commercial uses to residential uses. One could term that it is a transitional zone in nature with types of uses that are located in the area and on that main thoroughfare. When you look at the exhibit that's been distributed to the board members and is also on the easel, which is entitled the Color Site Plan / Landscape Exhibit, it is a combination of the site plan drawing, which is within your drawing package, and also the landscape plan, which is in the drawing package. And it combines and includes some of the comments and revisions by Mr. Gallerano's office, Harbor Consultants, as it relates to landscaping and some screening improvements as it relates to the fencing that's proposed in the boundaries. The property is proposed to contain a new building which has a footprint area of 6,710 square feet in size. The building has a depth of 122 square feet and a width of 55 square feet in size. 5,500 feet in size. The building has been situated along Elizabeth Avenue and also located along the southern property line. And the reason that the building has been situated in that area is we did look at rotating the building and fronting it along Elizabeth Avenue, but what would occur to provide the necessary parking on site, providing a site safety layout and scenario and drive aisles and pedestrian access would be a large parking field in the front of the property. That really doesn't exist along Elizabeth Avenue. What we wanted to do is create a streetscape along the front of the property while still providing the adequate parking on site. In addition, the topographic conditions as it relates to... As it relates to the topographic conditions on the subject property, looking at where we could provide access to the site without having to wall the entire property to create topographic conditions to provide safe site sloping and also a first floor elevation that would be pedestrian friendly and also vehicular friendly. If you look at tying in the driveway off of, say, Florida Street or Geneva Street, the topography wouldn't work to provide that driveway location without, again, providing substantial walling around the subject property. So we looked at a series of scenarios. Flipping the building, locating the driveway on Elizabeth would be Avenue, would be a substantial parking field in front of the building, which would not, I believe, provide the aesthetics that fits the neighborhood and also the zone. And then we looked at also providing different driveway locations with the different building, with the building situated differently. And that would work just due to the topographic conditions and potential walling of the site. So that was the reason that we situated the building as depicted within the site plan drawings. The building is set back from Elizabeth Avenue 6 feet with a decorative planter bed located along the front of the building. It's situated from Florida Street, 87.0 feet. And it's also situated from the residential properties to the west, 72 feet in distance. From the Geneva property line, the building is set back 58 feet, and we provide an 8-foot side yard setback from the existing residence that is located on Elizabeth Avenue. Again, the property provides access from Elizabeth Avenue into a 50-space parking lot, which will service the laundry and retail use. We provided parking in excess of the one space per 300 square foot area that's required by ordinance, understanding what we anticipate our development needs during
Understanding
what our development needs during peak hours, and also understanding that parking is a premium in the neighborhood and not wanting to overtax either roadways with our clients visiting the property. Pedestrian access to the site will be provided from Elizabeth Avenue through a new sidewalk that's proposed to access each of the individual doors, either to the retail portion of the building or the laundry warehouse portion of the building. And as you can see on this color exhibit, all new sidewalks are proposed around the fronting property. In addition, new ADA access ramps are provided at the entry driveway and also at the intersecting corners of the county roadway to ensure ADA compliance with respect to the streetscape itself.
Let me interrupt you to make sure you clarify. Elizabeth Avenue is not county road. As a matter of fact, for the record also, the county planning board already specified that they had no, so you know that.
Sure.
Still the same.
Exactly. But we're still maintaining compliance with Union County requirements as it relates to ADA access. We also follow suit with the City of Elizabeth access ADA accessibility requirements for all roadways within the county. As it relates to trash enclosure on the subject property or trash disposal, there will be a trash enclosure that's proposed at the rear of the property. It will be fenced entirely so that it is screened from the residential property. In addition, for the direction of the board engineer, we provided a decorative planting bed around that trash enclosure area to provide additional screening and aesthetics to the property. When looking again at the overall grading plan of the site, I'd like to compare or illustrate to the board. There's a drawing within the package, which is sheet 4.00, the grade drainage and building plan. This plan illustrates the means of which we're going to create a property to provide adequate access, and also to address the stormwater runoff from the subject development. What is occurred in the property will provide a parking lot that is fully curved so that stormwater runoff doesn't go over and doesn't exist today. And provide
Does it provide stormwater runoff?
The development has been designed to provide curbing around the property so that stormwater runoff or overland flow, which exists today, flows onto all the adjoining properties and onto the adjoining roadway system, does not occur and is substantially minimized. Stormwater runoff will be captured by a series of catch basins which are located within our parking lot. A substantial underground stormwater management system with 7 bays of 30-inch pipe, 120 feet in length, will manage that stormwater runoff to ensure that it does not impact any of the adjoining properties or the roadway systems. It's to be connected to an inlet which is located on Elizabeth Avenue. Prior to that discharge to Elizabeth Avenue, we're proposing to construct a water quality device, which is termed the storm scepter, which will pull debris, sediment, and oil out of that stormwater runoff prior to discharging to the off-site infrastructure, providing sort of green technology to not tax that off-site system and provide the ability for being a good neighbor with respect to those impacts to the off-site system. When we look at the overall grading plan and development and what exists on site, as I mentioned, the site is mounted toward the center. And there are walls that are located within the front yards of a series of properties adjoining our lots. We're reconstructing some of those walls which are located within the front yards, and we're extending some of those walls to provide a flat site across the site and tie into the existing infrastructure located on those adjoining lots. So there will be some small walls, 5 foot high along Florida Street, which exists today but is in poor condition. And there is a wall that's located on both sides of the property along Geneva Street on the adjoining lots. To date, an unsafe condition exists where a fence is retaining the soil. We're removing that fence and we're going to construct a retaining wall. So we're really addressing the public safety issue as it relates to pedestrian Geneva Avenue through this development. As I refer back to the color exhibit, we've provided an intricate landscaping plan to provide status overall to the development as a whole. We provide planter beds along the frontage of the site, directly at the corner of Florida and Elizabeth Avenue, at the main entry drive, as I previously mentioned, at the direction of the city board engineer. We provide an additional planting strip along Geneva Street, so people traveling along Geneva Street provide the status. And similarly, along Florida Street, you can see a large landscape bed to provide. Along Florida Street, you can see a large landscape bed that provides aesthetics and with screened cars located along that right of way. In addition, we illustrate 2 new street trees, again, to provide a more aesthetically pleasing street scene and look at what exists today with the new sidewalks and the new street trees along that right of way. The lighting, which is depicted within your drawing set, which is located on sheet 6.00 inches within the set term lighting plan, illustrates 3 new light posts which are located within the parking lot. All of the light posts will have cut-offs, so not to impact any of the adjoining properties. We also have a series of either decorative or wall-pack lights which will be located along the building wall, again, to provide an aesthetically pleasing-looking building face which the architect will present further, and also to provide sight seeing so that the site is lit properly.
Just want to clarify also that we also have a suggestion of the market consultant that we're providing with ornamental fences around the property. Is that correct?
Correct. Along the frontages with the public right-of-ways, we propose, and that's illustrated on the exhibit in the upper right corner, a 6-foot-high decorative black bar fence, which will be located along the frontages of the public right-of-ways to provide additional aesthetics as it relates to the overall development. When you look at the signage as it relates to the site, we're requesting a variance for a sign to be located, a pylon sign to be located at the intersection of Florida Street and Elizabeth Avenue. This pylon sign is 15 feet in height and 45 square feet in area. And the sign will denote the location of the site and also provide a demarcation that wish to visit the site so that they understand where it is, so it makes the roadway system safe so that people aren't looking at areas and realizing they're passing by the site prior to getting to the site. In addition, we've located 2 signs which really aren't per se advertising signs, they're entrance-exit signs, so that again it demarcates the location of the new driveway so that people that are traveling to the site can enter the site and understand where it is and it makes a safer site for people visiting the site. We've also proposed a series of wall-mounted signs, as there are a series of doorways which are located on the property. There would be 2 signs that relates to the tenant detail of the building. Those signs would be 3 by 8 feet in size, and then there would also be 3 4 by 12 foot size laundry warehouse signs, which would be located on the Elizabeth Avenue face, the rear face, and also the Florida Street face, so that people understand again that you could enter the rear of the building if you park to the back to access the laundry warehouse. You could park in the front and utilize it, and where those people that are walking to the site that they understand where the site is located. That would conclude my engineering testimony. In the future, I'll be back to present the planning testimony and proofs as it relates to the B variance and the C variances. I'd be glad to answer any questions of the board.
Commissioners, any questions for this witness?
I have a quick question.
Commissioner Calvis.
You mentioned various times that the corridors, Florida Street, Geneva Street, Elizabeth Avenue, decorative fence, plenty of landscaping. What happens with the neighbors? No landscaping, no decorative fence. I mean, the way I look at it, if I was next door, I'm looking at a parking lot, or either I'll be looking at the back of a block wall. Do I get any kind of pleasant exposure?
I think you do.
You just be good.
I understand your Commissioner. I think you do get something better along that rear property line than the decorative ornament would block out any of the property. The decorative ornamental fence, as you can see at the upper corner, has spacing or openings so that people can see through, but it provides the aesthetics as they travel on the site. I think when we're bordering those residential properties, western boundary line, and then also along the side boundary line for that house that's located on Elizabeth Avenue, we're providing a solid fence to screen that property, so we don't impede or provide any impacts to those.
What's a solid fence? What does that mean?
It's a solid screen fence where you wouldn't be able to see through.
So it's like a mesh fence, this is sort of,
It'd be like it would be like a vinyl fence which would block out so you wouldn't see through.
would you enjoy that looking out your window?
I have it at my residence. I have it. It's a
What are these on these
it's a
I
similar.
can't hear you. Please answer the question.
Sure. It's in many backyards I've seen it's utilized, and I think it provides the necessary aesthetics for a residential property while still providing the necessary screening to those residences so they aren't impacted from the
Right,
development.
so two of the residents are going to be looking at the parking lot, the other one's going to be looking at a block wall. What's the block wall, 6-foot fence going to do? I'm still going to see a block wall.
You would see a wall, but on top of the wall would be a fence, so we provide the necessary screening that would be necessary to block visibility. In that area along that property line, the wall is no greater than 3 feet in height, so it's not something like a screening wall that is going to tower over you. It's almost like a mini wall, just to catch the rays. And again, it also, what this wall does is address the same
Sorry,
position.
sir, you're speaking away from me and I can't hear you.
It also addresses an unsafe condition that exists on the subject property along that Geneva Street frontage, which is a fence which is holding up a soil slope. That should not occur, and that needs to be addressed, and that's why we're proposing this retaining wall. You're welcome.
Commissioners, any other questions? I have a question.
Sure.
The trees you have listed there, posted there, are they existing trees or proposed trees?
The trees that are located along the street, see, other than the two that are fronting along Florida Street, are existing. So there are 2 new street trees that are proposing along Florida Street. All of the plantings within the site are proposed.
Okay, and also the sign,
Sure.
it's a standard light sign, nothing flashing, nothing fancy like that, right?
I don't believe there's any flash.
We don't want to do that. Thank you. Commissioner Castro.
I know you were saying this before, but I want to understand. I'm analyzing the way you position the building facing Florida Street instead of facing Elizabeth Avenue, which I think is more proper. By repositioning the building, you will gain 11 more parking spaces, according to my calculation, in the center of the lot. Because now this building is not positioned facing Florida Street. And you will gain approximately 8 more parking spaces where the building is. I'm just not convinced that your argument is strong enough to persuade me to agree or to vote in favor of this building, the way it's positioned, and I like this application. I just don't see how.
I understand your concern, Commissioner. But I think that, again, the reason we positioned the building where it is located was that if we take this building and flip it as you suggest, what would occur is we will have a sea of asphalt in front of the building. Instead of providing almost a softener with an aesthetically pleasing building located along that Elizabeth Avenue right-of-way, which exists up and down that block in that area. So by shifting that building back, now you have a fairly large 50-space parking lot directly in front of the building. I'm not sure that exists within that neighborhood. We didn't want to change, and I'll testify as a planner, so that really doesn't fit the neighborhood.
I can't understand you.
Sure, that really doesn't fit the neighborhood with respect to the context and the streetscape as one travels up and down Elizabeth Avenue. And that was why we selected the location of the building. I don't think a sea of asphalt would suit Elizabeth Avenue, it would also suit the neighbors.
Look, I like the application, but I disagree with it.
I understand.
I'm not convinced.
Are they neighborhood, sorry, the questions?
Yeah, any other questions, Commissioner?
Behind the property, the opposite side of Elizabeth Avenue, the other residences there.
Correct.
So shifting the building to the rear of the property, while creating, as you call it, steel asphalt in the front, it would also be the back of the building on the residential neighbors in the back. Is that correct?
That is correct. So we would actually be shifting the back of the building to face the residential properties. What would also occur is any residences that are located on the opposite side of Elizabeth Avenue will now be facing again that sea of asphalt. And then, again, it really doesn't suit, I think, what exists within the neighborhood as you look at an overall streetscape. And that, again, was the reason why we situated the building there.
So I would also, if in fact we're talking about Mary Elizabeth Avenue, which is mixed use, there are, again, nightclub, park house, funeral home, and other commercial uses. In our opinion, in addition to the, what we have already stated, positioning that building closer to Elizabeth Avenue would be more aesthetically correct when you look at the overall neighborhood.
Oh, most definitely. Again, if you look at the overall neighborhood, I can't think of a property within that, say, 2-block radius that would have a full-blown parking lot, the building situated in the back. There are parking lots which are located along Elizabeth Avenue, and we try to mimic that with a smaller footprint of parking lot located along Elizabeth Avenue, and still maintaining that streetscape with the building located along the frontage.
In addition, part of the proposed clientele is a walking clientele, correct?
Exactly.
So if you were to position the building at the rear of the property, then walking clients would then have to go through parking lots like that, create potentially more of a safety concern that if the building was presently located.
I do agree with that statement. I'm glad you brought it up. Is that if we situate the building to the rear of the property, it would be a longer walk for pedestrians. And we do envision pedestrians walking to this facility. It could create an unsafe condition with more vehicle pedestrian interactions across the site.
And furthermore, maybe some selfish value here, but if the secondary commercial use, the plan is for it to be closer to the streets, that goes without, is that right?
Correct.
So the potential use and also the potential walking clientele of that individual will certainly be benefited by the building where it's located, is that correct?
Exactly. But again, the main reason that it was situated there was to maintain that visual streetscape as you travel down Elizabeth Avenue, to provide that the same context and the same visuals as you travel down that roadway, and not to look at building, large parking lot, and then building.
And also, we have, in addition to what we originally planned as landscaping is concerned, that by the time we would pass it around, take into consideration the comments of our consultant and our intent of aesthetically pleasing environment, we have created ample, I shouldn't say, we created a substantial more landscape, which was also aesthetically pleasing, is that correct?
Yeah, we looked at every angle that someone would be looking at the building, and we provided some sort of visual screen as it relates to the property. Whether it is a landscape screen or that hardscape screen, we provided something that's visually pleasing to all that look at all angles of the building and at all angles of the site.
So when you look at all overall, you still believe that that is, in your opinion, engineer, and I guess later on I'll be asking the same question as the planner, that overall will be the best scenario for all
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Are you familiar with where this building is located?
Yes, I
You're familiar with Elizabeth Avenue?
am. Yes.
What is more dangerous, crossing through Elizabeth Avenue or walking 25 feet through a parking lot to go to this building? The answer is obvious.
Yeah,
Elizabeth Avenue.
the answer is, I'm not sure,
I have another.
where the question was
Well,
going.
the question comes from Mr. Sanchez is cross-examining you,
Sure.
and he is addressing safety concerns that would surface if we reposition the building. I don't see how which safety concerns are the ones there. Now, the parking lot on the side of the building, there are several houses that are built immediately adjacent or on the side of those parking spaces. I'm talking about the parking spaces on the left of the building.
On the west side.
Yes. I think it would be less disturbing for the neighbors who live in those houses if you reposition the building. It would be aesthetically better for the city and less disturbing. I don't see how your argument that people driving along the Elizabeth Avenue corridor will see a concrete parking space where the people driving along the Florida Street won't.
Well, I think the people on Florida Street, what we've done is provided, again, that ornamental fence and that, you can see that large decorative plant. So what that would do is that's going to screen that parking lot. What we've also done, again, as I mentioned, is provide that solid fence that's located along that.
We're going to provide what?
That solid fence that's located on that rear property line. Again, I know that you mentioned shifting the building back, and I respect your opinion. It's just my opinion that by shifting the building back and providing that large parking lot to the front, I think you're changing the overall character of the neighborhood and changing the look of the area where you're now getting more into, say, a retail strip mall looking site instead of providing something that fits within, again, the context of what exists within the overall neighborhood. And again, that's why we propose what we're looking at here. This is now basically, as it's situated and where it's located, it looks like a neighborhood business which is compatible with the overall neighborhood.
I have to tell you, I'm in favor of this application, but I'm not convinced with your argument.
I understand.
All right, any other questions, commissioners? Okay, next witness.
Thank you.
I call the architect.
Conrad Marcabi, yes.
Ready to be sworn in and open your file qualifications so that...
Certainly.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear testimony you give this evening will be the truth, all that, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Name, spell your name, and give your address.
Conrad Marcabi. The address is 935 River Road in Edgewater, New Jersey. RONCATI. I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey for over 25 years. I'm licensed in 16 other states. I practice nationally, mostly in the tri-state area. However, I've appeared at over 800 board meetings. I've been in Elizabeth before. It's been a number of years. And I've testified in over 200 municipalities in the state of New Jersey.
Okay, well said.
Thank you.
Mr. Conti, you are the architect in charge of this project.
Yes, I am.
Please, present to the board the thoughts that went into the plan itself and your design and...
Certainly. I have a very brief presentation. There's been a lot of discussion about the site here tonight and its orientation. The building is actually a lot simpler. The building is a rectangular box. The square footage is 6,710 square feet. Dimensions are 55 feet on the short side and 122 feet on the long side. If we look at Exhibit A100, to the left is Elizabeth Avenue, and at the bottom of the drawing parallel would be Florida. So the north is on the left side with Elizabeth Avenue running in this orientation. What we're proposing are two retail stores. There's been discussion about the laundromat. We also have a second retail space, and we've opted to locate that retail space closer to Elizabeth Avenue. As you can see from the diagram, this wall here being the demising wall, the majority of the space in this building is dedicated to the laundromat. The laundry gross square footage, 5,225 square feet, and the retail is 1,485 square feet. And again, the laundromat is located in the scenario farther into the site, with the smaller retail presenting itself on the Elizabeth Avenue side. The building is, again, rectangular in plan. It is one level, except for the two entrances. Again, looking at Exhibit A100, there are two entrances that are delineated at the two entry points, one being the laundry, the other being the retail. The building is 17 feet high to the roof deck itself. It's 19 feet to the parapet, which is the majority of the height of the building, except for a couple of detail points at the entry, which go up another 2 feet 8 inches, for a total of 21 feet 8 inches. And the zone will allow 35 feet for 3 stories, or 1 story, and the majority of the building, again, is at 19 feet, with some areas of detail going to 21.8. So we're about 15 to 16 feet below the maximum height. We only went as high as we needed to go. Sheet A200, which was in your set, are the elevations of the building on all 4 sides, the east, west, north, and south side. What I'd like to do is refer you to this next exhibit. This is the same sheet A200, but it's colorized. So these are the exact same elevations that you have on your A200, except you can see the materials in the color. I'd just like to briefly talk about the exterior from here. Again, looking at the main elevation, which faces the parking lot, faces west into the parking lot and faces Florida Street, you'll see that there are 3 predominant materials. There's a stone veneer base that runs on all 3 sides of the building. There are brick piers that provide some rhythm and break up the facade so that we don't end up with a very long facade with vertical elements. The bluish color are the windows, the glazing that we have on the building. And then there's a white cornice at the top of the building. The signage areas are located over each respective entry. So the laundromat signage van would be in the brick right above the entry. The retail, which hasn't been identified, would be in the second area. And then along the Elizabeth Avenue side, which is elevation number 3, there are 2 more sign locations. Again, if you're on Elizabeth, you're heading west, we have a pylon, but we're also looking to add the laundromat sign and then the retail tenant sign so that people driving by the site don't just drive by, they identify the business, they turn into the parking lot. As the Commissioner mentioned, when the engineer was speaking, the rear elevation of the building, but is really the east elevation of the building that faces the one house that we're next to, has less detail. I wasn't at the meeting when my client met with that neighbor. There was a discussion about whether they would like the elevation to continue on the 4th side, or whether they would like it to be more simple. I'll use the word blank. And what I mean by that is not a lot of detail. I think the response was they had no preference either way. But hearing the Commissioner's comments about the rear of the building and how it is not like the other three, and it does present itself to an adjacent house, I would suggest that although we can and probably would not want to introduce glazing into this facade, that we could certainly go back to the other three facades with the stone base, the brick, the banded details, the brick piers, and then the cornice mold, and wrap that all the way around this fourth side of the building. I think that would make it more presentable. I know this doesn't address the Commissioner's comments about the location of the building on the property, which I think are interesting comments, but I think that wherever the building is placed on the property, being that we can see this building from all four sides, depending upon where you are in the neighborhood, we would submit that this fourth elevation should probably be treated in a similar architectural manner. So the exterior aesthetic we're proposing would wrap around and be the same on this fourth elevation so that it doesn't look like the rear of the building. It looks just as presentable as all the other sides and takes into account the location of the property. That's my presentation.
Any questions?
Excuse me, Mr. Sanchez. Any questions, Commissioners? Next witness.
One person.
You have a question?
I may, Mr. Chairman. I was sitting in the audience for 20 minutes listening to the Commissioner's comments about the relocation of the building, which I think are valid comments. I just could not, for the life of me, understand where we were talking about. So with the Commissioner's indulgence, were you talking about sliding the building?
No.
Or rotating the building 90 degrees? I'm sorry, I was listening, I was trying to figure it out. So locating here at the back of the site? Okay.
Instead of here. You have here now to the 50 feet of the back of the building is going to be exposed to the industry. I think the building will be better located than the
Okay, my mistake. I thought you meant slide it over towards Florida. That's what I was trying to figure out.
Do you still have a question, Commissioner?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Next witness.
I bring back Mr. Gregory Blinick, who was already qualified as an expert engineer and planner to deal with the variances and perhaps
Could you state your name and address?
Sure, it's Gregory Poliniak, Neglia Engineering Associates, 34 Park Avenue, Lyndhurst, New Jersey.
you're ready to be qualified as an expert planner for the previous.
Correct.
Could you please go through the variances, including the use variance that being asked, and your opinion as an expert planner, as a resident planner, for the board?
Sure. The applicant tonight is seeking D1 use variance to construct a retail and one-use building in the R2 family residential zone. The first step in looking at a D1 use variance is to address the positive criteria as it relates to the proposed use variance. It's my opinion that this criteria is satisfied through the third category, where the use would be particularly suitable, and as it relates to the general welfare, because this site is particularly suitable for the use. The site, again, is located along Elizabeth Avenue, which is a main thoroughfare within the area. The C2 zone is within 1 block of the overall site. The commercial uses within the R2 district are within the vicinity of this overall project. As previously discussed, there's a funeral home, there is a gas station within the area, there's a senior facility within the area. So when looking overall at this neighborhood as a whole along Elizabeth Avenue, one could term this as a transitional zone because there's both commercial and residential uses and it borders both of these zones. The laundry and also retail uses are compatible with those in the neighborhood, and which include those residential people who live within the neighborhood would utilize the laundromat and this retail use by either walking to these, since again, it's compatible with those residential uses. When you look at the overall neighborhood and its utilization of it, one can look at this, that the appropriate and sufficient area and space for this appropriate use has been provided to meet the needs of the area, to meet the needs of the neighborhood and the citizens of New Jersey, thereby satisfying the purposes of zoning. In addition to development through the redevelopment of the site, with its additional landscaping and streetscape improvements, provides, and the aesthetics provided as it relates to the overall building elevation, provides a desirable visual impacts and environments, which advances again the purposes of zoning. The site also implements new site improvements to address unsafe conditions as it relates to fencing and utilizes the soil stabilization method, green technology through the implementation of the storm center, the stormwater runoff on property, and also addressing the ADA requirements through the implementation of ADA ramps along Elizabeth Avenue and at the site driveway. This development also, when looking at what exists today and what we're proposing, will create an overall an active neighborhood. And it's well known when creating an active neighborhood, it creates a safer neighborhood as pedestrians are within the area utilizing the subject property. When you look at the negative criteria, which is the second criteria to look at as it relates to use variance and proofs, there are two elements that must be satisfied and addressed. One is without substantial detriment to the public good through the development, and the other is without substantial detriment to the zone plan and the master plan. We're looking at the first element, the public good. There is no detriment to the public. The first item, which is the public good, there is no detriment to the public good as the site creates a use which is compatible to the overall neighborhood and the residential uses in the area. Again, as it relates to public good, the improvements provided, the stormwater infrastructure is proposed to significantly reduce this overall stormwater overflow into adjoining properties, thereby addressing public good as it relates to the development. Again, the filter is proposed, the green technology addressing the overall public good, and also there's been the implementation of landscaping, aesthetics, fencing, streetscape improvements, whether it's a solid fence or an ornamental fence, which creates the overall site aesthetics and addresses public needs as it relates to the overall development. When looking at the zone plan and master plan as a whole, the overall development continues the growth in the neighborhood, which recognizes the existing development in the area. You have residential uses, these are being recognized overall through the implementation of a program and plan, which provides a use again that satisfies and meets the needs of those for residences in the area. It also advances the purposes of the municipal land use law by providing sufficient space and locations for these appropriate uses, and also a desirable visual environment through the development techniques as it relates to this property, or the site improvements and also the building elevations through good civic design. As it relates to the development, there are also a series of C or bulk variances which we are looking to acquire as part of this application tonight. We're requesting 3 separate yard variances as they relate to this specific piece of property. One is the front yard from Elizabeth Avenue, 35 feet is required and 60 feet is proposed. Side yard on the south side, 18 feet versus 8 feet, and rear yard, 105 feet versus 128 feet. Again, as I previously had discussed as an engineer, which also morphed into my planning, part of my planning testimony, we looked at the placement of the building, the streetscape, the overall context of the corridor, and its impacts on all of the surrounding properties, and felt that the location of the building that is set forth through the application tonight suits the needs of aesthetics and the character and context of the neighborhood without impacting the adjoining lots. We feel that the purposes of the municipal land use law are advanced through this building design and those that are compatible within the neighborhood. In addition, again, the components as it relates to the streetscapes and aesthetics are provided. We feel that the variances related to this can can be granted without any substantial detriment to the public good, as there's no impacts to the adjoining lots. For again, those aesthetic impacts, whether it's of the solid fencing or the ornamental fencing or the landscaping, screened parking spaces and or the building. We also feel that the benefits of granting this variance outweigh any detriments that are created. There's no detriment through the implementations of the aesthetics of the building, and there would be no impairment to the plan or master plan through the granting of the setback variances. In addition, we're seeking variances as they relate to the walls that are located within the front yard of the subject property. I would categorize these variances as C1 variances, and the reason that I would categorize those as C1 variances is by reason of the existing site topographic conditions, which strict application of the regulation would create undue hardship as it relates to those. Again, as I mentioned previously, the site is mounted toward the center and slopes away. There are retaining walls in the front yards of the adjoining properties, illustrating the need of those walls to address the existing site conditions which occur across the property. We're reconstructing walls in those areas, so there are some existing walls which are existing nonconformities which we are maintaining. And then there's the wall that's located along Geneva Street, which is proposed. And again, as I previously had mentioned, that wall is being proposed to address a safety issue, which is a fence holding back soil, which is never recommended as part of the development or any engineering standard design or regulation. The next series of variances are C2 variances related to the overall signage across the site. The first addresses the pylon, which is discussed, which is 50 feet high, 45 square foot area. The ground signs, which provide no, advertising signage. They're just signs that the state entry and exit to the driveway and entry locations, which are 3 feet high, 3.5 square feet in size. And then the building wall signs, which I discussed. 2 3 by 8 feet signs that address the intent, retail intent, and 4 by 12 foot commercial warehouse signs. And the reason that these signs are being proposed is due to the specific piece of property that this is located on. We have a property that is situated that faces, that has 3 separate roadway frontages, and demarcation of the site needs to be provided to one direct people that want to visit the site and understand where it is, provide notification so that people visiting the site can drive their vehicles and address the site safety aspects with respect to pedestrians and also vehicular visitors to the site so that they understand where the site is located and how to enter the site. Again, the purposes of the municipal land use law are advanced in municipal development as it relates to providing a design that's compatible with the neighborhood. That's compatible with the overall neighborhood. Variance can be granted without any substantial detriment to the public good. And again, I feel the benefits substantially outweigh any detriment with respect to.
Slow down, don't you get that?
Take your time.
I didn't know what
You were on a roll.
I was on a roll. I wanted to.
We want to get it done a half hour ago, I'm going to take another 5 minutes.
I'll keep going. I'll slow down. The benefits outweigh the detriments again because the signage itself is providing and creating a safer site. It notifies people where businesses are located, the entrances and the entry doors, so that people visiting the site and people visiting the site can enter the property. There is one design waiver that we're requesting and it relates to the parking space size. The city ordinance requires 19-foot depth parking spaces. We're providing 18-foot deep parking spaces. The 18-foot parking space size is recommended for most developments, almost all developments, for the Urban Land Institute parking standards. As it relates to the overall location of the parking spaces, where they're fronting either sidewalk or 6 feet in depth and or planter bed locations, the vehicles still overhang 1 foot and still make up that distance. If you have double bay parking spaces, the size of the parking spaces can become into question because you can't overhang someone's parking space. It's also recognized in numerous codes, including the residential site improvement standards, although not a residential development, that 9 by 18 parking space sizes are recognized as more than acceptable for vehicles that we use in the property. And that would include my client that's located
I have a couple of questions. I think we need to revisit the location of the building Castro has some strong concerns about. I want to perhaps get some concerns out of the way. This building is, the architect testifies about 19 people.
Correct.
And there's only one residential property located here on Elizabeth Avenue and Geneva, is that correct?
That's right.
However, there are two residential properties along the rear of the property, is that correct?
That is correct.
If we were to move, as Commissioner Castro suggested, move the building to the rear, now we have a 19-foot structure that arguably would be impacted by the word to two residential properties, is that correct?
Exactly.
How does that equate with your planning?
Well, when we look at impact as it relates to an overall. Sure, when we look at impact as it relates to an overall development, we're looking at the properties that would be impacted as in total, and also we're looking at the context of the streetscape. By shifting the building to the back, when looking at the streetscape in total.
You're fine, but every so often you just swallow the words, and I don't know what the hell you're saying.
When looking at the streetscape in total, and also looking at the impacts to the adjoining residential lots, we would be impacting more properties by shifting the building to the back of the site. And by shifting the building to the back of the site, this solid screened wall or screened fence vinyl fence that we're providing wouldn't address the location of the buildings and the visual effects based on the angle that you're looking at, subject to those properties at the back location of the property line. So your visual impacts when you're looking at the angle of visibility when standing on those properties would be impacting two separate properties.
And could you, perhaps maybe the architect, take it to the back, if we were to move the building to the back, suggestion today, in order to create proper flow of traffic, it would seem to me, and perhaps maybe the architect might substantiate on the argument, is that we may need two driveways across Elizabeth Avenue.
There would be the potential to need two separate curb cuts along Elizabeth Avenue to provide that looped parking lot with that bay in the center of the site. So you would have the parking on both sides with the center bay, and again, you would have one main entry drive and one main exit drive to provide that parking lot, which I think, again, would affect the overall streetscape as one travels north and south on east and west on Elizabeth.
Commissioners, any questions for this witness? Do you have any further witnesses?
I'd just like to readdress some of the comments that were made regarding specifically the hours of operation. I'd like to I made the argument based on my knowledge of the business and the flow of the business that I think staying open is a service to the community. As a service to the community is important. However, I also recognize the argument that you're making and the concern you're raising about the commercial use fitting in with the residential area. We are, and so I would like to make a proposal to address that concern in hopes that maybe, we can further address your interest in having an earlier closing. And what I'd be willing to do, if acceptable to the board, is to take 1 hour off the end, such that we would be calling last watch at this location at 11 p.m. and we would be closed closing by, again, give those last lost customers time to get their things done at the store and closing at 1 a.m. I'd also like to add that just behind the site, on the corner of Merritt and Florida, there's a tavern. The tavern is a neighborhood tavern that is completely surrounded by houses and has no commercial frontage along Elizabeth Avenue. That tavern stays open till 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. on the weekends. And I feel that's important to recognize in terms of how the neighborhood is already affected by what's really there. I think that and also the Babaleo Club across the street. The Babaleo Club across the street, across Elizabeth Avenue, and maybe a block down, is also open those hours. So, again, I hear the concern, and I'm trying to work with your concerns to address them, and I believe that's a reasonable compromise, and I hope you would agree. Can I make a second point also, as the Commissioner would like to address that issue further? You raised a concern about the nature of the privacy fence being proposed between the west border and the two residences. And that, in the detailed plans, is proposed as a 6-foot either wooden or vinyl fence. If the board has a preference in terms of the type of fence that it believes will provide adequate privacy, to those residents. However, it is more ornamental or decorative. We've used wood fence before. We've used, I think it's called split rail fence. But we're open to addressing that issue in whatever way the board thinks is reasonable. So I didn't want you to feel that you're being dismissive of your comment, and I wanted to point that out.
My intent, when it comes to the fence, wasn't ornamental. We're not looking, or at least I'm not looking to say waste more money on a more decorative type of fence or any sort of that nature. It's more of a buffer where it's suitable, where if I was the neighbor next door, I mean, you're coming into my neighborhood, I live next door, I'm looking at a black wall. I'm looking at a parking lot that at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, people are coming from your establishment making noise. Yes, down the street there's other establishments, but they're not in front of the doors that you are. You're coming into an R2 zone, you're a commercial business, and I want to make it clear, it's a valid project. Very valid. I want to see it go through. My main concern, and it's not so much the aesthetics. Aesthetics, listen, it's a matter of discussing it with neighbors and the architect, the planners, and so on, and making it work where everybody wakes up in the morning and looks at a pleasant sight. I'm fine with that. You can deal with that, and I know you will. My big concern is time. I don't know if that 1 hour is enough. Really, no. I would reevaluate it. Your decision, your proposal. Don't think that might do it, at least not me. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to have a 5-minute recess so they can, so we're going to take a 5-minute break. Action. Mr. Sanchez. Mr. Sanchez. Mr. Sanchez, this is the last time we'll call
going to take this and the whole site, and come back another day to hopefully get that side.
All right, Mr. Sanchez suggested this board is going to table this application and revisit it at another time. Do I have a motion for that request? A motion has been made by Commissioner Castro to table this application. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, second.
Second by Commissioner Gonzalez. Is it
If we decide that we are going to make decisions, we more than likely there will be triggering of variances, and then we'll have to be renoticed and published. We will not, we will be working on those decisions.
I have one other statement. If it's going to be tabled for a date certain, we can do that tonight. Otherwise, we have to renotice, even if you didn't change it and change variances. So we should table it, say, to the next month, or, to a date certain. Otherwise, we would still have to.
So why don't we table it for next meeting? We can make a determination whether additional variances are triggered, which would require additional publishing.
The next meeting of the zoning board will be June 14th. Okay. So we have a motion made by Commissioner Castro, seconded by Commissioner Gonzalez. Madam Secretary, roll call.
Commissioner Castro.
Aye.
Commissioner Stefan. Commissioner Eden. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Representative Dixon. Commissioner Valdez.
Aye.
Vice Chair Thomas.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Sanchez.